This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of DocNJock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my guy, as always, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. On today's broadcast, lots to get into. The Lions will have joint practice today. As you're listening to this, we'll be out there watching and covering the Detroit Lions play against an AFC squad that has a lot of talent. What do the Lions need to showcase against a better opponent than I think than the Miami Dolphins? What do these practices mean for a couple guys that maybe are on the lower end of the roster? And of course, I got to get Adam's opinion on Hendon Hooker. Is he ready to cut ties? Does he believe that on the 53-man roster they need to keep 3 quarterbacks? I think would be a travesty. Do they need to push harder to get Trey Hendrickson? A couple people are talking about throwing out some names of players that maybe should be included in deals. I think that's crazy. But I'm curious to get Adam's sense about what's been going on, the happenings with the Detroit Lions. And in the second half of the podcast, seems like the Tigers righted the ship. Did they prove Adam wrong again? Part 2. With all these wins, Scuba Day, great pitching, the way in which they've been able to dominate teams that are way less than them. It's going to be a good broadcast. I can't wait. But let's just start 2 minutes. We can only give 120 seconds to it because we're not terribly surprised, right? Michigan did not face the hammer. They basically, in essence, to me, I can only give 40 seconds on it, and I might scream and yell later, but in the end, it was worth it for them to do it. They knew pretty much that, a big fat $30 million fine means nothing to them. I'm shocked that they're appealing it. I think they should just accept it and move on. If they want to battle over paragraphs and small details, it's wild to think of that level of arrogance to try and negate something that you pretty much got slapped on the wrist. You got your influencers like Dave Portnoy going, $20-30 million, that's chump change. I was like, Jesus Christ, man, that's FU money when you're able to just say 20-30 million. But for a university for a university like Michigan that has donors that are billionaires all over the world, like right now, at this very moment, you could go to Greece and walk around. You're going to find 2 or 3 people wearing the big block M. It's disappointing. I would have liked to have them not say publicly. The part that hurt me the most was they said, we probably have justification for postseason bans, but we don't want to hurt the student athletes. Well, unfortunately, you play at Michigan. You face whatever the organization does, and if you go into Michigan not thinking that they're smelly, then that's on you. So that bothered me, but I'm certain you're not terribly surprised at what happened.
No, I kind of figured this is what was going to happen. It really did from the onset feel like it was going to be a small slap on the wrist. I think the most surprising thing to me was everything that we kind of thought was going to happen happened, but then Michigan doubling down again and just being, like you said, arrogant. That's the best word to describe them is arrogant. To think that you've done nothing wrong when there are pages and documentation and sources and so much evidence that proves that you cheated, for you to go out there and say, nope, we don't like this. We're going to fight this. What? Like, you got slapped on the wrist and basically the NCAA said, hey guys, go ahead. It's fine to cheat. If you want to win a national championship, it's going to cost you $20 million. And for you to turn around and say, nope, nothing to see here. We're going to fight this, and we're going to prove that there's nothing to see here. I mean, you've had Connor Stallion come out and basically lay the beans about how important he is and how important he was to that national championship run, into that short time period where Michigan was so dominant. He basically told you, like, hey, I'm the masterminds and I'm the brains of this. And it was because of this that Coach Jim Harbaugh, Coach Sharon Moore, insert said coordinator, was able to do what they did. And you've seen it with the penalties. Like, Harbaugh has a 14-year show cause penalty. Like, that's ridiculous to say. Like, those words are ridiculous coming out of my mouth. Denard Robinson has a show cause penalty. I'm going to be honest with you. I forgot Denard Robinson was even on that coaching staff, and he has a show cause penalty. Minter's already serving one. You've got Sharon Moore, and this is the other thing that just blows my mind. Sharon Moore gets a show cause penalty, but he's currently the coach. They picked the 2 games this year for him to be suspended. The NCAA came back and said, nope, we're going to suspend him 1 more game. And I don't understand it. It's probably just a power play. It's probably just to show that the NCAA does take what he did seriously. And in order to do that, they're going to suspend him 1 more game, but not suspend him this year. Wait till the following season when they take on Western Michigan.
Oh.
What? What are we talking about here? What are we doing here? To me, the penalties that Michigan got were absolutely absurd for the violations that they did. And then the Michigan response was even more absurd, just doubling down and just saying, nope, we're going to fight this tooth and nail. To me, it's all ridiculousness. I believe that university, and look, I'm a fan of that university. I believe they're absolutely ridiculous. You can see I can see, I mean, you can't see maybe, but I can see in the way that I support them has changed dramatically. I no longer go to Michigan football games. That used to be a big event for my cousin and myself. I no longer do those. I much rather sit at home and watch it on television. When it comes to buying gear, very selective about the gear I buy. I didn't buy anything from that national championship year. Like, I'll rock a 1997 anything, doesn't matter. I'll rock a Charles Woodson jersey, doesn't matter. From that championship, I don't own anything, and I won't own anything. It's even when I was watching that game, when they took on Washington, they beat Washington to become national champions. I'll be honest with you, man. I kind of treated it as background noise. And the reason I treated it as background noise was because I didn't think they were actually going to be able to keep the championship. I thought they were going to be stripped of it because at that point, the gig was up. You knew what was going on. And you were just waiting for the NCAA to run through all their coursework and basically dot their I's and cross their T's and come out with the penalty. And like I said, the NCAA basically told you it's okay to cheat. It's no big deal. Go do what you got to do to win. You're not going to get bowl bans. You're not going to be stripped of wins. You can go and basically take care of what you've got to take care of to get things done. And to me, it's mind-blowing that the NCAA is as fraudulent as they are. And it blows my mind that Michigan, who claims to be leaders in the best, are as fraudulent as they are and devoid of character. And I think that's the one thing that really has come out of this is the lack of character that apparently Michigan men have. And that is sad to me. Almost as sad as the Red Wings hosting a money grab and raising a banner that probably should have been raised, 15, 20 years ago, and trying to cram it down your throat along with a Hockey Town logo in the middle of the center ice, in accelerating game packages for Sergei Fedorov. What are your thoughts on the Red Wings? To me, it feels like a publicity stunt. It feels like it's a way to get people in the door. They went out, did absolutely nothing this offseason. Steve Yzerman continues to toil away with the Yzer plan, which I still have no idea what the Yzer plan is. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think Steve Yzerman knows what the Yzer plan is. Bring in shitty free agents, overpay those guys, but then don't want to give good free agents long-term contracts. To me, it doesn't make sense. And it really feels like in their centennial year, more importance was placed in the logo that's going to be at center ice, and then finally going that extra mile and bringing back Sergei Fedorov to raise his jersey to the rafters, who arguably in the 90s was the most dominant player on the ice at any given point. Remember, this was a guy who was a top 5 forward when he played offense, and he was a top 5 defenseman when he played defense. And in some games, he played both roles. And sometimes even on the same shift, he played both roles. And this was a guy who was electric, absolutely electric. And really, he was the guy who opened up the floodgates. As much as everybody wants to point to Alexander McGillney, he was the guy that really opened up the floodgates for the Russian invasion into the NHL and bringing over the talented Russian players from the Soviet bloc and getting them here to play hockey. Like I said, to me, it screams of day late, dollar short. I'm happy for Fedorov that his jersey is getting retired, but with the lack of emphasis put on really anything in building this team and really setting it in a direction where it's playoffs or bust, to me, it just feels like it's a bit of a cash grab. What was your reaction to Fedorov finally being told his jersey is going to go up in the rafters of, I guess, Little Caesars Arena now?
Yeah, it was weird because they had a 7 a.m. post. They deleted it, so everybody knew, and then they reintroduced it. Yeah, it's just, to me, law of diminishing return. Everybody's already over it. You should have did it a long time ago. It's nice. I'm excited to see him, and I love the fact they're rubbing it in a little bit that it's against Carolina, so that's fun. Kind of a nod to that whole saga, but it's a little bit weird because there are still people that have that mixed feeling that, you know, he took that deal and left to go to the Hurricanes. So that was just a weird time. It was just his affiliation with the Red Wings afterwards was a little bit weird, but if that can come full circle, I knew Steve Yzerman would always make it right. It was one of his teammates and a big part of why they won cups. So I'm just not going to really pay attention to all the circus around it. Yeah, they're not going to get me to buy tickets or any 5-game packages to go. I'll enjoy it on TV, and if he talks to the media, you check it out a little bit and keep it moving. But you're absolutely right. It was it lost its specialness at this point in time. When you wait, you know, an extra 10, 15 years when people are waiting, it's like, all right, man, we've all moved on already. And just for the Red Wings, it's about Steve Yzerman getting the team to play a lot better. And it would be great if they actually had a team that you thought could make the postseason, but we'll see how it plays out. So, and now as the training camp plays out for the Detroit Lions, the biggest story that really emerged is that because Kyle Allen beat Hendon Hooker for the job. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think everybody wants Kyle Allen to sit this weekend against the Texans and not risk getting hurt because you already lost your rookie 6th-round draft pick in Ahmed Hassanin for at least a month. So it's unfortunate, you know, what's going on. But Hendon Hooker did not beat Kyle Allen. And to be even close to a tie where you're at in your career, it's bad. It's real bad. And it's unfortunate because to me it speaks to the lack of development of a quarterback and also the combination of a quarterback that wasn't ready to handle an NFL offense. That really speaks bad to Tennessee and what they did in their single read offense. And Hendon Hooker did not develop in this system. It's unfortunate. And look, you won't be surprised. We told you this here at Detroit Sports Podcast since day one of OTAs that something was up, that we're not liking what we're seeing. So I'm disappointed. I don't know how to handle it, but Cubs, there's no way. If they come out with the 53-man roster and Hendon Hooker's on it, and you take up a roster spot that could go to Jackson Meeks or Lovett or Keith Cooper or Kennelly, who's done well and earned a spot, I would find that to be a little distasteful. I think that would be a sign of a GM that understood that there's a mistake clearly on the field. We all saw it. But if you can't cut ties with the mistake, I think that's triply worse. That is so much worse than the whiffing on a pick. It happens. It's a 3rd-round pick. You would have liked to have seen a more productive player. It hurt the team. That draft class is weird. 4 great picks in 23 at the top and then 4 rough ones at the back end. Really highlights how tough drafts are. But to me, you got to cut ties with Hendon Hooker, and if he gets claimed, he gets claimed. But I feel like you can cut him and get him on the practice squad with a 99% effectiveness because he hasn't done anything, and I only think the Bears or the Jets would be the teams that would maybe even consider it at the slightest because he hasn't done anything.
Yeah, and look, I think the call that Brad Holmes is going to have to make here and that Dan Campbell is going to have to make here is going to tell you everything you need to know about this front office and more specifically about Brad Holmes. I've been highly critical of Holmes in the past, bringing back guys like Levi Onwuzurike, going out, extending different linebackers that you have, basically constantly trying to keep the band back together instead of doubling down, realizing you're in your playoff Super Bowl window and going out and getting a guy like a Trey Hendrickson. Instead, you want to keep all of your own guys. Well, this is one of your own guys. And this was a guy that you used quite a bit of draft capital to go get. This was a guy that you moved around in the draft in the third round to go pick up. You thought you could develop him. You thought you could get something out of him. It is evident he cannot play at this level. He's not built to be a backup quarterback. I thought that you had a very interesting article. I think it was either late last week or maybe early this week. When I was doing some different research and just kind of perusing different things for our rundown, I stumbled upon it. And I'm going to want to get your take on that here in a moment. But I think what you initially said with what you can do with Hendon Hooker, if you're Brad Holmes, and you don't want to just outright cut him because he can't be on your 53-man roster. He can't. If he somehow finds a way to be the third quarterback on this roster, you're not doing everything in your power to put the best team possible forward. Whoever the 53rd, 54th, 55th, 60th guy is on this roster is better than Hendon Hooker. He will give you more production than whatever Hendon Hooker will give you. There's no reason he needs to be on this team. If you want to bring him in and get him onto your practice squad after you expose him to the rest of the league and they all give you a thumbs down on him because he sucks ass, go ahead. Slap him on your practice squad. I don't have a problem with that. But again, that being said, there's going to be other guys who are going to be released. There are going to be other guys who are going to be cut. I feel like there's going to be somebody better out there. There's going to be guys out there who have shown more in this preseason that should have a spot on your roster or have a spot on your practice squad in case some shit does hit the fan. Knock on wood. It doesn't. But if it does, you want to be able to facilitate and put the best team possible out there. And Hendon Hooker is like strapping cement blocks around your ankle and having a turnstile for your offensive line and just saying, hey, D-line, go get him. And you can't run out of the way and you're just going to get blitzkrieged and bulldozed and it's going to suck for your season. You thought at one point, or you had stated that you thought Brad Holmes might be looking to possibly trade Hendon Hooker. I want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think that there is still a viable option for that to take place? Do you think Hendon Hooker could possibly be used as trade bait and they could possibly get something back in return? Because again, I feel like they gave up a bit to get him. Those the third round pick that they ended up using, and I think it was another fourth round pick that they gave to get up to go grab him. Those are guys who could be on your roster right now. Those are guys who could be playing along that defensive front, or those are guys who could possibly be making an impact somewhere along your offensive line depth chart. Instead, you decided to go with Hendon Hooker. So is there a chance that they can get a little bit of a return on this investment?
It's one of those deals where that's what I felt like. I'm like, well, Dan Campbell said he wants to highlight him. What are you going to highlight? You're shopping him.
Yeah.
That was my assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're shopping him. And so far, he actually had a decent week, and we kind of propped him up a little bit. He's made some throws because, and here's the thing to it, where football in its form leads to hyperbole and exaggeration. At practice, I want everyone to know, and I've shared this in podcasts and now sharing it publicly here on DocNJock, defensive ends can't hit the quarterback. They have to slow up. They have to go around. They have to maneuver so that they don't take the guy's head off. In a real preseason game, that's where you're seeing the happy feet because guess what? The Dolphins don't have to stop. There's no whistle that says, oh, stop the play. So when we say Hendon Hooker in a red zone period is holding the ball, in a live game, that's when he's getting his head taken off. So that's the little bridge that you don't see when reporters are like, yeah, he stood there and stood tall and make some throws. Well, yeah, if you get to stand there and have no fear of getting your ass hit into the ground, then you are able to be a little bit more confident. And he was still holding on to the ball too long. So that's the little 10% that you can't extrapolate. And Kyle Allen was able to handle the pressure, handle it fine, and he won the job. So you got to try to trade him. You got to take a 7th rounder. You got to get whatever you need to, and you got to be able to, in any capacity, cut ties with the player. It's just good for him. It feels like a guy that knows his ceiling has been met here in Detroit, and he lost his confidence and he doesn't have that fire anymore. I mean, if you just look at the video I shared after the game, I said, hey, when you're struggling, what do you do? He's like, I rap to myself and I try to calm down. It's like, no, man, you gotta do a lot of, you gotta kind of pick your confidence up. You gotta get after it. You gotta lead. But it is in a rough spot right now. And it's unfortunate, but it's just one of those deals where sometimes a change of scenery might be, well, if you can get anything for him, then that's fine. But I just don't need to see him on the 53-man roster.
Let me correct myself real quick. So in that draft, specifically in that third round, Lions moved back from 55 to 58 and then moved back to 63 to select, or 60, I'm sorry, it was 68, 55 to 63 to 68 to select Hendon Hooker. So he moved back. Brett Holmes moved back to get him. But let me just highlight what you could have had instead of Hendon Hooker, because this is where it gets fun. This is where it gets fun. So I'm looking at the draft right now. So at pick 55, this was part of a trade that happened earlier in the draft. Detroit got that pick from Minnesota. Detroit ends up trading with Kansas City, and Kansas City ends up selecting Rashid Rice, wide receiver out of SMU. Very good player. Then what happens is Detroit ends up trading Kansas City's pick to Denver, and Denver ends up selecting Marvin Mims. Again, a very good wide receiver out of Oklahoma. And then Detroit ends up taking Hendon Hooker. The pick that was right after Hendon Hooker was Tank Dell, another really good wide receiver who could have helped out your team. Instead, look, we're going to talk about Isaac Tesla because one of the big takeaways I have from the preseason game that we had this past week includes him. But you probably would have avoided that situation where you gave up multiple third-round picks to go get a wide receiver. So the draft is funny because it's kind of a butterfly effect. There were very good wide receivers there that probably could have helped your team. And instead you end up with a quarterback who's just kind of sitting on your bench. So it's what it is, man. The Hendon Hooker pick is frustrating because when they selected him, I was like, cool. I'm happy about this. I think this could work. I think he'll be a decent player, and he's just never developed. And it's just a bad look, man. It is really, it's a bad look.
So now, if something happens to Goff, are you okay with Kyle Allen being the guy? I feel like maybe for a game, but it's not good enough. It's just not the standard.
Right.
They got to go. Maybe they'll keep 3, but they'll go out and get somebody else. That maybe get.
They have to go get somebody else. Like I don't feel comfortable with Kyle Allen as that guy. Like you said, I think in a pinch, right? You've got to lead. It might be 24-17. You need Kyle Allen to go out there and basically continue 2 drives, right? Like you just can't turn the ball over. Don't screw things up. I feel like you've got a good enough run game. You got a good enough offensive line where he'll help you out. I'm not expecting anything explosive, and I don't expect him to win a game, but he's in a position where he just needs to kind of eat up some of the clock and not turn the ball over, maybe get you in field goal range so Jake Bates can put one through the uprights. I feel okay with that. But when another team has a whole week to scheme against him, a whole week to develop and kind of pick out his flaws and figure out what he does well or doesn't do, no, man, I don't feel good about that at all. I don't like that one bit. Oh, here's another thing. As I'm scrolling through, looking through people who are taken after Hendon Hooker, Yaya Diaby, the end, he could help you out a little bit. Imagine him playing opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, I think that would look pretty good. I'm just saying. There's different running backs in here. There's a ton of guys a ton of different ways this could have went. And instead, this is what they have. So, what was it? Siaka Ika, that was a guy who I was high on during that draft. D tackle ends up going to Cleveland. So it's to me, man, it's just one of those picks that obviously didn't work out, isn't going to work out, and is frustrating because there's other talented individuals that you could have had that were right there at those draft spots. And Detroit either chose to trade out of them to move back or just completely skip those guys in an effort to get Hendon Hooker. which is just maddening because he can't play at this level. Where are you at with Kyle Allen? Do you feel like Kyle Allen gives you like that? They've got to do something different, right? Like there's Cleveland's got 4 quarterbacks. The one guy that I feel like we both wanted is going to be their starter. Fine, makes sense. I don't really want any of what they're kind of picking over there, but I'm assuming that there's going to be a talented quarterback cut by another team that you can go grab and would slot in as your number 2, and maybe you just keep Kyle Allen as your number 3 quarterback, or maybe he goes to your practice squad. There's got to be somebody else out there, and we'll know more in a week, but like I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions ended up going and doing something different at quarterback. I just don't feel like the quarterback is on this team. Oh, here's a little more salt in the wound. In that draft, Broderick Martin was drafted in that 3rd round. You could have had, like I said, Siaki Ika. You could have had just about anybody else, man. Yeah. That's another guy who sucks. And look, that's another guy who, if isn't cut, it tells you a lot about Brad Holmes, man. Yeah. Broderick Martin's done nothing. He's cut. He's absolutely nothing.
Nothing. He's cut. He's in one day, out the next. It's a weird vibe. And, you can almost read a vibe when someone answers. I talked to him, and he did something, though. I will give him credit. He did something a player never really has done with a media member. I said, hey, man, you want to talk? And I just wanted to see what he was going through, what's been happening. He said, no, man, I'm okay. No problem. I said, no problem. I've always been fine with players that want to go to the locker room. He then came back and got me, tapped me on the shoulder, and he's like, no, man, let's take care of it. Let's get after it. I said, okay. I said, thank you. I really do appreciate you doing that. And I said, so what do you feel about your roster spot? He's like, man, I don't worry about that. He's like, if God wants me here, I'm here. If I'm not, I'm not. He's like, I don't care if I'm with the 2s, 3s. I just got to go out there and make plays. So he gave the professional answer, but it's just one of those deals where it's not good enough, not consistent enough, and he needs seasoning. And Roy Lopez has done a better job. Mekhi Wingo's coming back. It's a numbers game, man. It's unfortunate. Broderick will not be on the 53-man roster. I think they will try to slip him through waivers. That's a maybe, and I think they're okay either way, and that's unfortunate. Sometimes you just need a little bit more time, and Brad's notoriously patient, but 3 years in, you got to be a little bit further along. You got to be available. He's just not available, and he's not progressing at the rate at which you can find somebody else to do the job. Keith Cooper took his job.
Here's the deal.
Keith Cooper stole his job.
Yeah, if he could have hit on him, the defensive line would look good. But again, like you said, guy can't stay healthy, can't stay on the field. This is a guy who regularly struggles when he's out there. Like I don't necessarily see him making the plays that he needs to make. You know what I'm saying? Like he does nothing that is memorable. When you watch these games, it's not like you're like, oh, okay, cool. Broderick Martin's out there wrecking shop. And yeah, it's against 2s. Yeah, it's against 3s, but you're not seeing that. Like this is not a guy who stands out. Like you watch a Lions preseason game, there are guys who stand out. There are guys who take your attention. There are guys that you're like, okay, I see them getting a roster spot. I see them holding down a position. It would be interesting to see what they did with the 1s or what they did against 1s. It would be interesting to see how these guys would handle a bigger role or handle a little bit more. Instead, you got a guy like Broderick Martin, and you're just kind of like, okay, I don't really know what else we can do with you. Like, even as a rotational piece, he's not a guy who I necessarily want to see out there. It's not really a guy who I want to see doing a whole lot of anything. You look at a guy like Grant Stewart. That's a guy who does stuff. Like he flies around. You watch those games, he makes plays. He's highlighted. He's out there doing things. Broderick Martin is not a guy out there doing things, not making the stat sheet, not blowing up plays, not having memorable moments where you're like, oh, that was a cool play. That could have just won him a job. There's none of that's going on. So it's another guy who not even on the bubble, man, just not on the team, just not there at all.
Yep.
Something that was there was a little bit of doubt about this offense. Last week we talked a little bit. You're obviously there every single day. You're watching these things unfold. We both know that the offense was going to be a little bit revamped. There's going to be some changes. There's going to be some stuff that's going to stay the same. You've got a new voice inside the headset of Jared Goff, a new guy with maybe a little bit of a different vision of what this offense needs to do. We both believe this is going to be a much more forward passing offense. It's going to be taking much more deep shots downfield, trying to open things up, I believe. But you got to see in these team practices with Miami, you got to see this offense really excel, really take a big step forward. And everything coming out of these training camp sessions, everything that we got to see during these training camp sessions has this kind of taken back some of that concern for you about where this offense is. Maybe not so much that the offense isn't going to have a couple of rough spots, because I think that's going to be expected. There's going to be some spots where it's just not as smooth as it would be if Ben Johnson was here, but you're no longer on like a 7, 8, maybe a 9 for your concern level. You're probably closer to a 5 or 6. You're just like, yeah, there's going to be a couple of rough spots. I do believe they'll get it figured out. This offense is going to churn out points, and this offense is still going to be one of the best offenses in the league. Is that now where you're at coming out of last week's with their training camp sessions against the Miami defense?
Absolutely. That's the key, is that there's so much talent. J-Mo's getting better. I think he'll be a guy that takes the top off the defense. Laporta, if he stays healthy, I think will be involved in the offense. I think Tate Ratledge is going to slide in pretty comfortably. He's done just everything the way you'd want to. He's opening holes. I just think that, when you have that much talent, they're going to make John Morton look really good. And if he spends that much time game planning, you have to think. They said that, like John Gruden said, that guy spends so much time cooking and learning and evaluating defenses that if he spends that much time doing it and loves it, how are you going to come up with game plans that are going to be ineffective? I just think that it bodes well for the line. There's just so much talent. Goff is in his prime. You have 2 good running backs. I just think it's going to be hard-pressed unless the team has a massive injury on offense. St. Brown, my goodness, after a not-so-great practice Wednesday, I'm sure he's doing extra work today to get a not-so-good practice on Tuesday. I'm sure he's doing extra work today to make up for it. There's too much talent. I think that they have enough talent, and the defense is getting better. So it's going to be a very competitive offense. It's going to score. I mean, yeah, the one thing that you could see early is a couple of flash penalties, offensive line out of sync, 3rd and 2, you get a penalty from Mahogany or Ratledge or something happens. It's a little bit out of sync, then no problem. But barring injury, because this offense looks good. There's talent all across. There's talent everywhere. Literally, which with this football team, it gives me confidence about 10, 11 wins, is the starting 11 on both sides are really solid. You could name them all right in a row. I can name all 22 starters within 10 seconds, and they're all good. They're all good players. And after that, that's where you're going to find out what Brad Holmes brings to the table, is that can the depth guys, when you start mixing and matching behind Amik Robertson at the nickel corner spot, behind, is Avonte Maddox the guy? Is Rock Ya-Sin a real contributor? Is Kennelly somebody that if Brian Branch needs a spell can get out there and make plays in the regular season? So those are all things that are going to be determined. But I love the 22 starters, and I love the fact. Now I'm a little disappointed in now the Ahmed Hassanin with a pec injury, but he's not needing surgery, so I'm hoping he can recover and maybe get back for the second half of the season. But that's a good sign, not needing surgery. But that's just bad luck, because our biggest question mark was, man, his size, an offensive lineman mauled him. That's not good. It's unfortunate, but I do think that there's an opportunity to get him back this year. Dan Campbell didn't say it was season-ending IR, so there's a chance that he comes back. So I like a lot of the positives. I just think that it's overblown because John Morton is not a stranger to the offense. He helped create it. So he's already into the mix. It's about tinkering. It's about adjusting. And when you got Dan Campbell in your corner, I just feel like Laporta is going to take a step forward. There's a lot of positivity. But we got to ask, do they need the final piece? Do they need Trey Hendrickson? And now you're hearing, as the saga continues, that the Bengals maybe have to come down in their asking price. It may be a second-round pick and a player. I would not in any capacity trade Jack Campbell or Brian Branch. I feel like you create a massive hole. I don't think an Ian Kennelly out of Eisenhower, that's like 10 minutes from my house, I don't think that guy out of Grand Valley is going to just jump in and make it happen. That's just craziness. So I would be like, hey, simple. And that's why a little bit the comments that Brad made publicly to Kay Adams were a little bit off-putting to me, is that it's not that you're scared. Nobody thinks you're scared. It's we think you can do it. It would only take maybe a first-round pick and a third. It might take 2 draft picks, but are you willing to do it? I feel like the Lions could bid and win, but they know that if the other party says, hey, we want the extension or we're not coming, we're not going to be happy. But you got to put out there, hey, we offered a first, and they said no. The other camp is. You gotta just sprinkle it in there that, hey, we were interested. We were one of those teams. You get reports. The Browns, the Giants, the Commanders, they're interested, and nothing happens. That's fine. But if Trey Hendrickson gets moved, I think the Bengals boned him, bro. I don't think he gets an extension. I think he's just going to be like, fine, whatever, dude. Just let me play another year. If I get 15 sacks, I'm going to make $40 million next year. What better place to do it than here in Detroit? Make the move. Mm-hmm. Like, go all in this year, and you'll get so much respect, so much hype built up. You get Davenport as a reserve, and then you just add Zadarius Smith to sprinkle in the cherry on top. Bro, that's an all-in move. That tells everybody, let's go. Let's make the pressure at the highest, and let's see. When you have the pressure at that level, you can all you can do is focus and pay attention with that schedule. So I would do it. I would F them picks, but no players. I just think that, man, the Bengals have really boned this player. I would hate to be in that situation.
Yeah,
I would always feel like that would happen to me. Like, I'm really good. I'm really happy. It's time to pay me. And they're like, no. So how does this play out? Does Trey just get boned? Does he sit out this year?
I don't think he sits out. I think something will eventually get done. What that is, I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't sound like they're going to. It sounds like the world's apart on this contract. So I feel like there's going to be a trade that's going to be made. Somebody's going to come in and get him. And why the hell not the Detroit Lions? Look, I would give up Jack Campbell. I would not give up Brian Branch. I don't really know if there's anybody. I mean, honestly, I'd give up Kirby Joseph. I'd much rather have Brian Branch than Kirby Joseph. But that's neither here nor there. I think due to cap ramifications, you would not make that move because you'd just be shooting yourself in the foot. But I would give up picks. I'd give up a second this year. I'd give up a third next year. Again, they're going to have to come down from what they're asking for. You're not going to get a first. Like, it's just not happening. Nobody's giving you a first for this guy. You have no leverage. Like, it's the one thing about the Bengals. Bengals screw up everything with contracts, screw up everything with money, and then they realize that they have zero leverage by the time it's too late. Like, you've got no leverage here. So you're going to have to come down off your asking price. But I would give up a second. I'd give up a third the following year. I'd go get this guy. You pair him with Aiden. You let these two dudes go wreck shop. You sprinkle in Davenport. And then if you want to, go grab a guy like Zadarius, or there's a guy in Philadelphia. It sounds like he might be cut. Now, he's primarily just a third down. He's a passing situation pass rusher in Alige Ojulari. You can go get him and add him. He'd probably cost you pennies on the dollar, probably a little bit less than what Zadarius Smith would cost. I think with the Eagles, I think he's on a 1-year, $3 million deal, and it sounds like he's about to be cut anyways. So you mean to tell me you would have all those guys up front trying to get after a quarterback? You'd have those guys being able to bounce inside because you know that they'd come up with some type of versatile front to where you could have these guys at any given point. You could have any one of these edge rushers playing on the D line, just all out blitzing a quarterback. Like, what? Yeah. Dude, it only makes all the sense in the world to go all in. And this has probably been one of the bigger sticking points with a guy like Brad Holmes, is it's not just him wanting to keep his own guys and not going out there to bring other guys in. You are now in a position where you don't necessarily have to say F these picks, but you can use your picks to help leverage yourself getting a better player. And Trey Hendrickson is a guy who has led the league the last 2 years, knows how to get to the quarterback. This is a guy who is a top 5 edge rusher. Why would you not want to pair him with a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, who you believe is the future of the edge rushers, who you believe is already a top 5 edge rusher, who you believe is going to be a top 2 or 3 edge rusher in the league years to come? All this does, by going out and getting him, is it makes Aiden Hutchinson that much better. If you're now a defensive coordinator, you're like, great, who do we end up placing where to try to add some extra protection to keep these guys off our quarterback, so we can get a bubble screen to at least work so we can move the ball around just a little bit, because you're going to have to bring double coverage to either one of these guys' sides. So unless you're going with a full max protection where you've got 2 tight ends in there and they're trying to help out those tackles, at that point, you can send a cornerback, you can send your nickel back, you can send whatever, because you're not going to have this defense spread thin. You're going to have so much meat and potatoes stacked up at the line. Somebody's going to be able to get through because they can't put all these guys out wide. It really helps simplify what your defense has in front of them, because now they're facing double coverages on those edges, and you have 2 guys, 2 war daddies who can get to the quarterback, get pressure, and just wreck shop. To me, man, it only makes all the sense in the world to go out there and get a guy like Trey Hendrickson. And if you don't want to do that, if you want to do things on the cheap, obviously, Zadarius Smith is out there. Go get him. Nowhere near the player that Trey Hendrickson is. Nowhere near the player that Hendrickson is. But he is an efficient player. He's a guy who can give you pressures, can get to the quarterback now and again. I think you still, if Ojulari gets cut by Philly, I think you need to be first in line to bring that guy in as well. That's another bullet that you load up into that gun that you have as your defensive line, and that's another guy you can take a shot at the quarterback with. And yeah, he's not a starter, not a 3-down guy, but this is a dude who you can put out there, and he's going to draw attention, and you can send him out there to get the quarterback. So I think they have options to kind of fill in Hassanein's role. And look, I'll be honest with you, I don't really think Hassanein's role was going to be all that huge. He's a 6th-round pick. This guy was a developmental player. I think what hurts is for maybe next year, you're hoping to develop him. He looked like he was progressing well through camp. Not having surgery, good sign, like you said. It is a pec injury, so he's going to be sidelined for a little bit. I'm obviously going to be put on at least the PUP list, so missing at least 4 games. I wouldn't be surprised if it was closer to 6 to 8 games that he ends up missing, especially with 8 games keeping that roster spot open for another guy to see if you can get some other production from somebody else before you really have to make a move and cut a guy or send a guy to your practice squad. But go and get Hendrickson. Like, if there was ever a move that signaled we're in it to win it, right? Like, this is real life. We are here now. Our playoff window is now, and our Super Bowl window is this second. It's going out and getting a guy like Trey Hendrickson, bringing him in, pairing him with Aiden Hutchinson, and then again, you can add role players, bit pieces. You know, you've got a Davenport. If you want to go get Zadarius Smith, you can go do that as well. But this would be the move that I really feel like would put that defense over the top. I feel like this defense is going to be much better than it was last year, and they had to account for a lot of injuries last year, and they were still pretty damn good. I think this defense is going to be light years ahead, possibly top 5. I do believe there'll be a top 10 defense. You pair that with an offense that I believe is going to be a top 5 offense. To me, that screams Super Bowl or bust. That screams Super Bowl winner. Let's go get what's ours and let's go make a move. So to me, Brad Holmes just kind of has to stop being scared. You got to come to the table, put your nuts on it, and say, let's get a deal done. Absolutely.
And that's what you need to do. There's only so many years in your window you have, and sometimes you have to say, okay, Aiden's going to break the bank. I mean, he's going to take $50 million. And that just is a big chunk of change. You're going to restructure Goff. That helps. And you're going to lose one. You're going to lose one of, and in the coming weeks, we'll talk about it. You're going to lose either J-Mo, Jack Campbell, or Sam Laporta, or Brian Branch. Of the 4, I think you keep 2. And you try and find the next to do it more affordably. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be monitored. Let's see if Aiden Hutchinson, how much he takes, if he gets a contract before the season, or when that ends up taking place. All right, before we get out of here, last 5 minutes or so, Tigers are whipping that ass on the Astros. I think they got momentum from the Tuesday contest when it was a 0-0 game going into extra innings, and then Gleyber Torres gets the opportunity with extra with bases loaded and a full count. He takes the pitch correctly. It's a ball, and they win, sends home the crowd super excited. They're dominating a decent team in the Astros, and I think people are a little bit more excited, and they're getting back into rhythm. The hitting's back, and they've cleaned up their act a little bit. They had a lull there in July, and now we got to reassess. What's your panic level? I think I'm still at a 2. I'm accepting that's a good baseball team. I think that as we are talking, which is crazy. We're coming off the heels of the Yankees hitting, 9 home runs? I was in the restroom one day in the morning, and I'm like handling business, and I wake up, and you get the updates from the news people, and they're like, and in other Major League Baseball news, the Yankees hit 9 home runs in their win. And all I kept thinking was, oh, dear God, I don't want to see Paddock against the Yankees. White flag, white flag, white flag. I just was like, okay. The Yankees are doing their thing, man, but it's wild. The Tigers are in the mix, man. They're playing good baseball. I think we owe them credit for the week that they had. They're whooping up on the Twins as they should, the White Sox, the teams that they're clearly better than. And now you're going to face the Royals in a series of games that I think will be impactful coming up here. I love the series against the Astros. Wednesday afternoon game is always great for people, for fans. And when you have a 6-spot or 5 or 6 spot in the first inning, that's always a positive. How are you viewing the week? And do you calm down a little bit? Does the medicine kick in a little bit, bring you back down from bipolar to just serene and chill?
Yeah, at this moment in time, right, you have to also realize this is their first series win against a team that is in playoff contention.
Yeah.
That we consider a good team. And the way that they've done this and the way that they are doing this has been impressive. This has been no small feat. This looks a lot like that team that got out to that amazing hot start beginning of the year and rode that hot start right up until just about the All-Star break when things kind of seem like they have fallen off. So I would say that I have moved up on our scale that we had last week. I have moved from a 3 where I'm bipolar to now I'm comfortable with things. I feel like this is a team that is playoff bound. I feel like this is a team that is more than likely going to win their division. And I feel like this is a team that is in contention to possibly get that first or second seed. I feel like that is incredibly important for this team. You know, if you can somehow manage to have one of the 2 best records in the American League, you get that bye, gives you a little bit of rest. It allows you then to set your pitching rotation the way you want it. And I feel like AJ Hinch is so cerebral. You give this man options, you give this man time, and you let him set things up the way he wants to set them up, he's going to crush you. Like, he's such a good manager. So I have moved up. I'm in a much more comfortable situation. It's going to be interesting to see. I think we're about 30-ish, maybe 40-ish days out before we're talking playoffs here. So we're on the doorstep, and this week the Tigers have really helped calm a lot of my nerves. So I am comfortable with things as they sit.
Woohoo! That's awesome. Yeah, it's winning. Listen, man, winning solves every single thing, man. It's a fun time. Detroit sports. It's a fun opportunity here as we approach the end of summer, and it's a craziness that's surrounding everything that's been going on. The Lions, because it's right around the corner, man. It's crazy. Fantasy football is gonna kick off here, and I guess the free fantasy advice that I'll give everybody, even though you're my competitor and you dominate the league and you have a good football mind, Isaac Tesla as a late round selection, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th round later on, he might end up being a championship getter by the time fantasy championships happen. He's got that thing that just, for whatever reason, man, I don't know. Amon-Ra is going to be interesting. And then I do want to end on this. I have not belly laughed in so long. I don't know if it's real or fake, but it was so funny that I just had to watch it a couple times. There's a video circulating on the internet of a fantasy draft, and it's so funny because I feel like once in the next decade or so in our draft, it might happen. There's this dude, and he gets clowned by his friends. Walks up to the board, and he slaps Robinson Jr., slaps Robinson on the number 1 draft board. He's all proud of himself. He's like, I'm taking B. John Robinson. And then the look on everybody's face as they keel over laughing as he drafted, I think, a defender or drafted somebody. He drafted, I think, a journeyman running back. And they're like, dog, you drafted the wrong Robinson. And then everybody is just belly laughing. He's sitting there so embarrassed. And it's so funny and real and raw because it could happen. I think we all know somebody that might do that. It was so funny. If you've not seen it yet, just go watch it. They're like just boys ripping on him for drafting the wrong Robinson. So, memo from DocNJock. Make sure that if you're grabbing stickers, that it's Bijan Robinson from the Falcons. It should be a dark sticker, but oh my goodness, it's gotten millions of views. It's so funny. I can't wait now. Our draft is upcoming, and it's going to be a fun opportunity, man. Cuz, great stuff. Make sure you follow Adam on X at AdamRSTROZ. Follow us at Detroit Podcast. We bring you fresh content every Thursday since 2013. I can't wait to fire it up. Next week, we break it down. The roster will be set. We'll break down who Brad Holmes selected, who's in, who's out, who gets maneuvered, who stays on the practice squad, and it'll be a fun conversation. Hopefully, the Detroit Tigers keep up their winning ways and keep Adam, my guy, at a very, very healthy number 2. Thanks, everybody. Let's talk next week.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.